Mark, thanks very much, and good day to all the listeners and colleagues. Just a quick correction, I'm actually sitting in not in beautiful Cape Town, but in equally beautiful Johannesburg, the economic hub of South Africa. Just a few things. I'm going to touch on three things. So first of all, what happened during COVID. Secondly, how do we see the future? And thirdly, what are we expecting to have to change? So what happened in COVID, like Anthony mentioned, very similar dates, 26th of March, we went into lockdown. And I think there were 5 defining aspects of how it was managed in South Africa. The first is tremendous support from government. So the sector remained open as an essential services sector. The second is the agility that business demonstrated to respond very quickly and in advance. They anticipated what was coming and could deploy staff to work from home very quickly before the lockdown. The third was the tremendous collaboration that Debbie talked about between competitors, typically in business, and also with all the government role players and social partners to quickly help each other out, get through this. And that extended to developing health and safety protocols, to innovating various solutions, etc. The fourth, I think, is really important, and that's to deploy a level of operational resilience to ensure that those who were being serviced were serviced reliably with the right quality and service standards. And the fifth is, with all credit to business in South Africa, they implemented the regulations and protocols with absolute discipline. And the point was made by China. I know it was implemented by everybody on this call, but putting people first, making sure that their safety and their well-being was first. So that's what went down during COVID. It was, like everybody else, extremely tough economically, socially, and I don't have to repeat that. But let's talk about in South Africa looking ahead and what do we see the future holds, at least for the next 12 months. So first of all, with this culture of collaboration that we see in this council, we've experienced tremendously in South Africa, is here to stay, and it will just build. Our social partners, government, business are inextricably linked at the hip to make this work. The sector is a priority sector in the South African economy. I wish we could say the same as Amir about South Africa, as you are talking about Egypt enjoying growth this year. We won't, but in certain sectors we are, and this particular sector is one of them. And so it does present huge opportunity, not just now for recovery, but for the future. And governments are fully behind it in terms of its priority status, the incentives that they offer investors, and the effort that they put into positioning the country as an option for investors. As the Everest research showed this morning, where 70% of companies project making their targets in 2020, so too those companies in South Africa in this sector. But we project growth to get back to pre-lockdown levels in mid next year, and then starting to pick up again onto our original growth path shortly thereafter. And those pre-lockdown levels were averaging 22% compounded growth per year, and then picking up to a plus 30%. And that's because we're experiencing a lot of new interest from all South Africa's sourcing markets. So the North Americas, Australia, the UK, parts of Asia, and the rest of Africa. And that business is arising because customers or clients and BPOs are looking at diversifying their geographic risk after COVID and the impact that it's had, cutting costs to alleviate the profit pressures that are they're feeling, and that's due to declining consumer demand, lockdown impact on business, and of course accessing new talent pools. And with regards to talent pools, South Africa is well positioned to provide the human touch points to a more complex and people-sensitive process. And in the call earlier, Anupam Goval from Avasant put it so eloquently when he talked about digital empathy. And I think that's certainly something that you would experience if you were doing business in South Africa. The service providers maintained their financial stability, and that was a highlight point of the earlier conversation around procurement practices. And delivery was largely uninterrupted, as I talked about, with quality and productivity remaining unchanged. But things are going to be different. So what will change? And I think this morning's presentation or the earlier presentation resonates. These are the following. Operating models have changed and the way we work has changed. So living with the pandemic and the protocols, vaccines, the travel restrictions, etc., we need to work through. They're here. Bedding down working from home is something we've all got to learn to do. In South Africa, we have currently on average 60% of the workforce on premise, 40% on home, but across that spectrum, it can be anything from 100% at home to about 80+% on premise at the moment. We have to find ways of how to engage staff, to keep them productive, to manage their morale, to support them to learn and work while at home during this phase. Of course, we foresee reduced costs of facilities, creating new opportunities. So typical A-grade property, which was really at a premium cost before, is now accessible at much lower cost. So to your point earlier, not only must we look at what does this new workplace look like, but the new opportunities to think about where do you locate your physical premises. So that's going to be another change. Highlighted this morning, and we can't talk enough about it in this council, is the future of tech enablement, what that means. So cloud and cybersecurity, of course, RPA plays its key role, analytics, AI, etc. Enabling organizations that are served in the sector to become more effective in their customer acquisition and retention, and to become more cost efficient. Importantly, is innovation has to become core of what we do. There are many unknowns ahead of us, many new use cases to solve for that we have to do. And so the innovative culture is going to be core. But in South Africa, I want to assure those on the call, we have a collective effort by all the partners to move up the digital value chain, to innovate, to ensure that we can get the right infrastructure out there to continue to support the sector at growth. Then skills, really important. So focusing on skills behind occupations in high demand, building digital skills to a higher level, workplace skills of the future that have enabled us to function during COVID, but we didn't go into COVID prepared with those skills. And we really need to make that a focused effort of ours. And then it's been said throughout today's sessions, we will continue to put an even greater emphasis on impact sourcing, because what this pandemic has highlighted is that the marginalized can become more marginalized. Yet this is one sector that has the unique opportunity to create huge working and learning opportunities for young people and older people that come from typically excluded communities. And we must make the most of that opportunity. So it's an upbeat future, but our work is cut out for it, full of change, requires innovation, but it's looking positive. Back to you, Mark.
Thank